Ah, durka durka durka.
Welcome, my friends, to another shitty review of a knife you've never heard of. In this case, multiple knives you've never heard of, and this isn't really going to be a review. It's more going to be just me blabbering about a brand that I think is interesting and doesn't get a lot of attention, and that is Real Steel. So the format of this is going to be, I have mixed feelings about this brand. I own 6 of their knives. And I want to talk to you about the good things, but also the bad things. And I think that this is a brand worth paying attention to. It wouldn't be the first brand that I would start collecting, but if you like budget knives like me and you like interesting stuff, variety, then it's really good for that. So Real Steel, of course, is a Chinese brand, and I only got into knife collecting like a year ago. But this brand has been around significantly longer than, or at least was popular. I will say I don't know when Civivi was founded. Um, it's probably on their Amazon banner, but I didn't look at it. I don't know when they were founded, but they do a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising, internet advertising anyway. Um, Same with something like Kaiser, but then there are these other sort of like secondary brands. All right, so Real Steel is one of them. Maybe San Renmu is another one, or SRM. Um, Trying to think of some other good ones that are, Tucson, Six Leaf. They're like good knives, but they don't have much quite the marketing budget. Maybe there's just um, it just doesn't seem as like a big or professional as of an operation as something like Kaiser or Civivi. So Real Steel Bow has been around for a long time, at least 7 or 8 years, and you can find old knife reviews. And I used to kind of put them in that category of like a Tucson that churns out a bunch of different knives, but they're very niche and they're like uh, I don't know, they're it's just different. I don't know, a different take. It's not quite the mainstream Civivi take. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but um, Real Steel is a little different, and so they have some interesting stuff that they do that I want to show you. The first and the biggest thing is they do these integral integral knives at a cheap price. So this is a pretty small knife. I can get let me grab my ruler. So sorry to keep my 7 total viewers on this channel waiting. I should have been prepared. But this is I guess I even have this knife. Oh, you can't see it. By the way, sorry, this is the rundown. So I did want to arrange them like this, so you could see if you like one of the knives or just want to match it up visually. So let's start with talking about the Sacred. Like many of these other knives, it is an integral design, or integral, and that it means it's a folded over piece of steel. And so you can see these aren't like liners. This is a solid piece of steel that's folded. And this was the first one that I bought. I thought that was really interesting. I don't really even remember much about how I found this, or this was one of those late night, oh, let me go get that, buy that knife, and then it shows up later and you're like, oh, okay. Well, I got this knife originally and I hated it. I was like, what did I just spend my money on? And the reason is that it feels very unfinished. So this folded over piece of steel has some pretty sharp edges on it. And so I actually had to go in there with a file, and you might be able to see it on the edge here, but I filed it down. It doesn't look pretty, but it's more comfortable. But I was just like, man, what is the deal? Like, how did you not round that off and kind of finish it up? And I also cut myself with this knife right after I bought it because it's a crossbar lock, which usually is considered safe. But this point comes so close to the edge that I cut it like right here. And if you look at it, it's really close. And I can touch it maybe with my fingernail. It doesn't, it just, you know, I think that this knife feels like a prototype. Okay. An interesting prototype, but I would not recommend buying this Sacred. Okay. So this is sort of where I was with Real Steel for a while. Bought this interesting thing, you know, watched some YouTube video. Oh, this brand does these cheaper integrals. Usually those knives are at least a couple $100. I kind of regretted it. Then I did accumulate a couple of other. I accumulated this knife. This is pretty random. I'm not going to spend much time talking about it, but as far as I can tell, I got this, the last Real Steel, Real Slim available at a normal retail outlet. Because I checked all of them and they were all sold out and there was one. And I think I got the last one of that. So I think this is the last one that's been sold in the primary market. It's extremely thin. You know, I have calipers and I'm going to go find those and I'm going to pause this video so you don't have to wait. All right, there we go. I bought these calipers, or actually got them for Christmas as a gift. So finally getting into the real knife reviewer game with all the necessary equipment. I guess I need a stupid mat. I don't have that, and I don't have you know, goofy catchphrases or whatever. Still have this crappy this piece of shit scale that you can't see when I turn it on. So there are some other upgrades that could happen at some point. But where was I? This Real Slim is Real Slim. So this guy is 5.5 millimeters. So it is thinner than, you know, some blade stock that you'd find. And so I bought this just kind of as a it was a little bit of a gimmick, I'll admit. I wanted something that was unique in my collection, and this is. I've never actually carried it. I may never carry it. Actually, that's not true. I think I've carried it a few times. It's so thin that that you could put it in a book, but it's too thin. I mean, really, it's something you want to carry every day. But it is cool. You can reverse flick it. You kind of got to get your thumb. Ooh, I can do it. Sorry. Well, I promise it's doable if you're more talented. There we go. You can't get your thumb in there with your you can't flick it with your fingernail. You got to do it with your skin, kind of wedged in there. Flick it out. Anyway, it's VG10. Definitely, I think this was probably made at least 5 years ago, 2020 or earlier. And so it's a little bit of a goofy design, but that's kind of the theme, right? With this Real Steel stuff. This is cool. I mean, I don't know of another knife, locking knife, and it has decent lockup, by the way. I don't know of another knife like this. And so it checks a box. It checks a collector box, not a user box for me. And that's the Real Slim. All right, so I didn't like the Sacred. I got this Real Steel, the Real Slim. Then there's 3 knives I want to talk about. So I started hearing more. I got bored around, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I started watching knife videos again, the Roundup's Best Knives of 2024, and blah, 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 blah. And I saw a few reviewers that I like. I think Neves Knives, and I don't know, so somebody else. We're talking about these, maybe Discerning Man, who's pretty good. We're talking about these Integral Integral knives, which isn't new, but they did a few other ones. I know David C. Anderson from Knife Center liked this. I think he might have even put this in his top 10, which is really surprising to me. But that was one of the things that prompted me, that said, hey, maybe I need to take another look at this brand. Maybe they're pushing, they're doing some kind of a marketing push. So it's possible, I don't know. They seem like they're getting more attention, and their website's pretty decent. So the Iris is another small knife. It's very skinny, it's very small, has a nice wire clip. This is in 12C27. It's not kind of the diet version of 14C. This is cool. I thought about dyeing it. It's extremely light. How about this? This let's look at this scale that you can't see. 1.73 ounces. Just trust me. So it's cool knife. I cut myself pretty bad with this knife. Now that was I'm sure partly my fault, but this liner, I was pushing down, and then this liner is so easy to disengage because this is so thin and such a small and skinny knife that this was just, it's just an exceptionally easy block to disengage, to the point where maybe it is a little dangerous, or maybe I'm a little clumsy. I'm probably gonna have a scar from it. You can see right there, I cut myself really pretty good with this thing. So again, it's one of those knives. It's cool. The action's a little bit gritty on these bearings. And I assume it's on bearings. I haven't taken it apart, but it's a cool knife. But then again, it's one of those ones where it's like, yeah, is it executed as well as I'd like? This knife I actually went looking for and bought off the Knife Swap on Reddit, because this color combination is hard to find, and I liked it quite a bit better. There's 3 other color combinations of the Real Steel Sylph. This is the Sylph. This is the one that got some attention a few months ago when it came out, and it's got this kind of double folded design, if you can see that. It's an integral inside of integral. It's like a cheesy gordita crunch. It's like a cheesy gordita crunch of knives, because you got the outside, that puffy gordita, and then you got the inside, and then you got the melted cheese and the mystery meat. So I love a cheesy gordita crunch. I like the look of this knife. I think it's very cool. I think it is a knife nerd knife because of this unique construction. It looks like a rifle, like the bolt action on a rifle here. I think it's pretty cool. Pretty typical boring blade shape. That's another theme of Real Steel, is a lot of times you get these pretty unique construction, but then the blade shapes are relatively conventional, which is actually fine by me because I'm not really into crazy blade shapes. So a lot of good things about this knife, but it's another thing about the execution. So I was wearing this, or I took this knife on a trip. It's the only knife I had. I was using it several days in a row. And I realized when this is actually in your pocket and you are picking it out of your pocket like this, it's, again, these edges they're kind of rough. And especially if you're going to have it in your pocket. This is the world's most ghetto pretend pocket. I need to get one of those like old pair of jeans the other guys have around. But if you imagine this clip, great deep carry clip, but as you put your hand into your pocket right here, you end up brushing against, because you don't have I don't have the super widest pockets, and then it's just uncomfortable. So this is kind of rough. So I don't know. Unlike the Sacred, I'm probably not going to take a file and file it down, but it's cool. But again, the execution keeps this from being a 10 for me. This is the part. Also, this part's also quite edgy at the top, and so it's a cool knife when you handle it. But then it's like maybe when you use it, you find that it's a little bit uncomfortable. And last but not least, so and then the Kakashi. This is one that I think that the guy from Neves liked, Jared, and this one is pretty understated. It actually might be my favorite and the one that I end up carrying the most. I kind of like the boxy appearance. This is the Kakashi. It's, again, that integral frame construction with this clip that goes over the top, and that's very cool to me. It's reversible, but it makes it the deepest of deep carries. Just a flipper. Got a real kind of slender blade shape. which I wouldn't call this a gentleman's knife because it doesn't look gentlemanly to me. It looks sort of vaguely tactical, but whatever, if you want to call it that. I tend to like these kind of skinny knives. And this one I think is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's earth-shattering. The ergonomics on it are okay. I can definitely feel the clip, and I wish that Real Steel would. I don't like billboarding, and I don't like the fact that this is like white on black. So I just wish they would make it more subtle. Put it on the pivot. Put their brand on the pivot. But I really do like this knife. I think this is a really solid knife. Now I didn't check the prices of all these knives, but all the Real Steel stuff is generally about 30, 40 to 60. And then this is the last one. So this is the G Slip. This is a slip joint, and I bought a few slip joints recently. And this is, again, a pretty cool knife with some unique characteristics. First of all, it has a clip, which is not super common for slip joints. It has a 120-degree stop, which is unusual. Pretty much everything you see either has no stop or a 90-degree stop. And this is kind of cool. I think it's a safety thing. I don't know if there's any kind of tradition or any other reason, but it means that if you push it, because the blade is angled back, you're even less likely to cut yourself. The pull is pretty average on this. I have a couple of knives. I have a QSP Hedgehog that is a much stronger pull, and I do prefer that. But all in all, this is a pretty interesting knife because it's, number one, it's a slip joint, so those are less common. It's a modern slip joint, so those are pretty uncommon. It's pretty big for a slip joint. It is about a 3.5-inch blade, and this clip is unusual. It's an Ostap Hell design, which they have a number of knives. I'm trying to remember any of these other ones that I have, but Ostap Hell has a number of collaborations with Real Steel, and he tends to have this. His designs, his blades have this kind of simple, narrow profile drop point, and I like that. So I have a number of knives that were designed by him. But the micarta is good, but it's a little dry. So I put some oil on it when I got it, but I think it would need to be periodically oiled, or if you actually carried it, I'm sure the oil from your hands would be fine. But pretty cool, and also this is more of a niche type of knife. This modern slip joint is pretty narrow, but for people who might be interested in that, I think this is a pretty good option. So, what is the summary of this video? Well, here are knives again, Real Steel. All these knives are about really like maybe 40 to 60 US for these knives. I mean, this is kind of rough. Maybe a little bit higher actually on some of these. What's interesting about it? So there's some unique construction aspects here. The integral construction at an affordable price. I think there's also some pushing. There's just some uniqueness and some just maybe a little bit, I would say, unique or unconventional, and not bad, but just different. Those are good things, and I ran out of space to write that. I think though the execution is a little bit. This is a meh on this. So for this brand, if you wanted to try different things or you just want to fill a niche in your collection, cool. But here's the Sacred, really rough around this edge. I cut myself with it. Here's the Iris. Really easy to disengage that liner. This Real Slim is a pretty unconventional knife, and frankly, like, sort of almost needs to be a two-hand knife. So that's my story with Real Steel. It's mixed feelings, generally positive. I think you should know what you're getting yourself into with these, and this is not the first brand that I would use to fill out my collection, but I would keep an eye on them, and I think it's cool that they push the boundary. So now those are my thoughts on Real Still.